everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and we continue our campaign play of Heavenfall, the expansion for Massive Darkness 2 from Cool Mini or Not, where we left it off at the end of the last video. And if you haven't checked out any of the prior videos, I'll put a link to the entirety of the campaign play showcase and everything up in the top right hand corner for you to get caught up to where we currently are. But that is, we narrowly, just narrowly succeeded at Quest A. We survived with just a single health for each hero. Pretty insane. We managed to get out. We didn't even end up losing a Lightbringer token, which is pretty cool. I left the darkness track out because I want to talk about something. You'll notice that there is some treasure tokens sitting on the track. Any treasure tokens left on the track at the end of your quest go back into the treasure bag, and then you can just move the track off to the side. We are now going to focus on what we gain as an end result of succeeding from Quest A. You'll see on the right-hand side of the quest setup page a campaign progression area. This is what you now read at the tail end of your journey when you're successful here. It states, "It seems the news is more worrying than it was first assumed. Not only was there a portal emanating darkness, but there were multiple portals. This isn't a one-time incident. The council must be informed immediately." Meanwhile, unaware of how worrying the situation truly is, the townsfolk decided to pitch some of their savings together and gift the heroes with a token of gratitude for defeating this minor nuisance. The rewards we gain is players may use the gambling alley for free during the next town phase instead of paying the usual cost. That's pretty cool. I'll talk more about that when we get into the town phase. Next, it says to distribute experience amongst the heroes as they wish. Based on the number of heroes, we had 2, so we're going to get 3 XP, and we can distribute them as we want. So I will do that in a moment. And then we're going to update the treasure bag. We're going to add 2 rare tokens to the treasure bag. At the very end of Quest A, we had 7 XP with the Berserker, and we had 10 XP with the Ranger. Now, getting 3 XP from the end of this quest and being able to disperse it, I can't give that 3 XP to just one character to try to push them to the next level. It doesn't really matter, so what I might do instead is actually bump up just the Berserker from 7 up to 10. So that way they both have the exact same XP going into the next game. So the Berserker's been bumped up to 10, 2 rare treasure tokens, which are the blue icon treasure tokens, are also placed inside of this treasure bag. There was 1 in there from the very beginning, so now there is a total of 3 going forward. Continuing onwards, it says, next quest. The council pondered on what could be done, and the Lightbringer company also gave their take on the matter. After a long discussion, it was decided that a party of Lightbringers should be sent through a portal and discover the source of the darkness. Unfortunately, this is a dire mission, and the chances of coming back are slim, since it is still not known what might be on the other side. Well, I can tell you, just based on what spilled through the portals in the last mission, I barely got out of there by the skin of my teeth. Then it states, first and foremost, the heroes need to find a portal, one that has been reported close by, and the heroes may be able to find a way to use it. There is also an old Lightbringer known for his prowess in manipulating portals who has offered to help create a ritual that might summon a portal for the heroes. We have a choice here to make, and this is one of the branching pathways on the quest of the campaign. It states here we choose one, which quest we want to do. Either Highway to Hellscape, which is Quest B, and it says go head first into an open portal and take your chances, or we can go with the Passage, which is Quest C, and it says aid the summoner in conjuring a portal. So a choice to be had here. Now, for the purposes of this video and the fact I don't want to spoil either one of those paths, I'm not going to choose one in this video, but I've now shown you, you have that option when you go through the campaign, and that's going to branch out even further as you continue through the campaign. Now, we move into the town phase officially right now. It says after winning a quest, the heroes go to the town phase, and all heroes may freely trade amongst themselves. Then you reshuffle all discarded items into their corresponding decks, so basically you're resetting all the decks back to what they were in terms of like the treasure cards you use, the enemy cards that were pulled out, the mob items, like all that stuff basically goes back in. Again, don't take anything that you accumulated in your inventory and put it back, of course, but you can reset your decks essentially. So even for the arrow card deck, for instance, with the Ranger, you would reshuffle that back into a pile and clean that all up. Next up, we're going to check the achievement list here. So during the town phase, you do this to see whether players have completed any of these. You always want to keep an eye on these because, well, there's good things that come out of gaining these achievements, and you get a reward for the first time each of these conditions are met. So completing 3 side quests, for instance, you draw campaign card number 1. Interacting with the gambling alley 4 times, you draw campaign card number 3, and so on and so forth. You can read the rest of them there, but these are going to branch out and provide you with different campaign cards that will twist up the campaign as you continue forward. So some things to aim for sure. And technically, you don't gain these all in a positive manner. For instance, losing the same quest 2 times is something you don't really want to try to achieve, but if you do achieve it, then you draw a campaign card that is likely going to change the state of the game. And you've got hidden achievements as well, which is pretty cool. So now let's talk about the town board here. Now, while you're in the town, players can discuss among themselves. Of course, if you're playing solo, you're discussing in your own brain or talking to yourself, and collectively spend all your acquired loot tokens and items to interact and use effects of each town area. We're going to go over those areas in a bit here, so don't worry. Now, items that are spent or discarded in any of the other town areas are only reshuffled back into their corresponding decks at the end of the town phase. So keep that in mind. Now, the biggest thing here around loot tokens and item exchange, which you can see down here, is you're going to gather loot tokens as you progress through the dungeon. Remember, we picked up a loot token for the Berserker, actually the only one we got. So we have one with the Berserker already, but you can go to the town and you can exchange items of a certain rarity value in order to get loot tokens. And then you can use those loot tokens to your advantage to spend within the town itself. So you can discard items to pay for town area costs, and you may add the item's value to loot tokens they currently have to pay for costs. Now, when you discard an item this way, they do not generate leftover loot tokens. So if you decide to go ahead, let's say, and trade in an epic level card, which would give you 9 loot, if you were trying to pay for something that costs 8, you don't get that difference back in loot tokens. That's important to note. That is wasted. So just to go over the different types or tiers of treasure, you have items that are common, rare, and we just added 2 of these rare tokens actually into the treasure bag, which definitely gives us an advantage if we're going to go into the treasure bag from the gambling alley, we'll talk about later on, to potentially get a rare to there. Epic and then legendary. You can see the number of those treasure tokens you get for each of them when you exchange an item in. On the left-hand side of the town board, we have a herbalist, and each interaction with the herbalist costs 2 loot tokens, as it mentions right there with the icon. And for each interaction in this area during the town phase, you can select 1 health or 1 mana potion from the starting equipment cards as long as there are still any of these cards available. That is a spot to pick those up before your next quest. Next, we have the gambling alley, and once per town phase, all players or a solo individual controlling 2 characters, each of those characters can interact with the gambling alley. Each interaction costs 6 loot tokens, as it denotes right there, and for each interaction in this area, players can draw 1 treasure token from the treasure bag, and then draw a treasure card from the corresponding deck and return the token to the treasure bag. Now, as a result of succeeding at Quest A, it's stated that each of the characters or players inside the game would be able to do this for free. So we're going to draw tokens out of the treasure bag, 1 for the Berserker and 1 for the Ranger. Unfortunately, neither of my characters ended up pulling the rare tokens which are inside that treasure bag currently. We got some common ones. Let's go ahead and take these common treasure tokens, put them back into the treasure bag, and we're going to replace them with a common treasure each from the decks. The Berserker ended up winning some monk robes, which are definitely better than the battered leather armor that is currently on the Berserker. The Ranger got a greater health potion. This thing can heal 5. Let's move our focus to the blacksmith, which is part of the town phase. Cost for each interaction with the blacksmith varies depending on the treasure deck the players decide to draw from. They are all laid out right there across all the different tiers: common, rare, epic, and legendary. Now, once players choose a deck, they pay the corresponding cost, and they draw 1 card from that deck to give to any hero. The Inventor allows you to interact, and it costs 81 loot tokens. For each interaction in this area during the town phase, players may search and take any 1 card from any treasure deck and then shuffle the remaining deck. So this costs a whole lot, but it certainly can net you some pretty great cards. Lastly, there is a tavern in the town. I mean, what town doesn't have a tavern? This one allows heroes to leave behind items instead of taking them into the next quest. Items left in the tavern can be retrieved by the heroes in subsequent town phases, and the tavern can hold up to 2 items per hero in the party. The tavern area has no cost associated with it. So it's just a great way to hold on to some gear you might use in another scenario and might not think is a great fit for the one you're going into. Hopefully that gives you a really good idea of all the things you can do inside the town phase between quests during your campaign. We're going to talk about the campaign cards up there in the top left in just a second. I want to mention that if I was going to go through a town phase in terms of trying to acquire new things, now we just did the gambling alley, we got to do that for free, so that's awesome. But taking a look at what I have for the Berserker and the Ranger, I don't have a ton just yet. I mean, we got out of that last quest by the skin of our teeth, and we also didn't pick up every single loot token that was in the game. We got one of them from the Berserker, and I did acquire a rare card and a common card. These starter cards actually that I have don't matter. I won't be able to exchange them in, but these two right here I could exchange in for 3 and 1, which would give me 4, plus the loot token would be 5 for the Berserker. And then you start looking around at things you could potentially do. I could go after gaining a health and mana potion. That would be a good idea potentially going into the next quest because I don't have one anymore. But I would really like to save up to go to the blacksmith and do something. But beyond those choices, and I have the same kind of choices with the Ranger on the opposite side, except I don't have a loot token. I only have 3 common items to trade in. The thing to think about is as soon as you go into a town phase, you are able to freely exchange and trade items between your characters. So you could technically load up one character with a number of items and have them exchange all those items in to gather up a whole bunch of loot tokens to be able to pull off getting a better weapon or better item in some way, shape, or form, right? Or be able to afford some of these things more easily. So keep that in mind when you go into the town phase. You are able to freely trade before you start going into that town phase. The final thing to touch on is a very cool aspect of the campaign for Heavenfall, and that is the campaign cards, which are going to certainly change things up and add new dynamics to your campaign play based on your decisions or potentially objectives you have obtained or maybe even not obtained. Because remember, sometimes even that achievement list can give you a campaign card for failing. Like if you lose the same quest twice, you may end up pulling a card from here that could impact your game, positive, negative, or somewhere in between. So very interesting way to change that campaign up and have it be fresh if you replay it over and over again. Now for Quest A, the only campaign card it mentions is if we were able to complete the side quest. The side quest was called Nooks and Crannies, which I went over at the very beginning, and it was simply just going through all of the chambers. As long as we revealed all the chambers, we got that side quest. Of course, we have to complete the quest itself, which we did. So because of that, it says to draw campaign card 8. We're going to go ahead through the deck and find it. It's important to note, make sure you're pulling the card that is specifies numerically. There's numerical values on the card. Don't just start at the top of the deck. There are spoilers all the way through these cards. Now this is a nice surprise, and again, this will be the only campaign card that I'm going to show because again, there's lots of spoilers throughout this deck. This one is just simply an item, and it's a good one. This one is the Pendant of Health. Not all of them are going to be items though, so that was a nice surprise. And it states right here, it actually shows the icon symbol of a special token that's only in the Heavenfall campaign, and it's used to count the number of usages a particular thing has. So it's a counter, essentially. This Pendant of Health comes in with 2 counters, and during combat, you can spend one of those counters to ignore 1 wound, which could certainly come in handy, especially in situations like you just saw at the end of my last play here, where I barely got out by the skin of my teeth. Having something like this could potentially keep you from death's door. And that's going to wrap up the town phase, which moves you right back into the campaign phase, which has this question presented in front of us again because we completed quest A, which is which quest do we want to go on next? We want to go to the Highway to Hellscape or the Passage. Now, once you choose, you're done the campaign phase, you move into the quest phase, you do your quest, and you loop right back into the town phase again. The one thing to remember is when you go into a quest, your character or hero can only have up to 7 items brought in to that quest. So, during the town phase, you are going to want to make sure you are exchanging in enough items to get down to 7, or you're going to want to get down to 7 on your character and at least stow 2 away at maximum in the tavern at the town. So you could technically, if you were maxing both of those options out, you could bring 7 on your character and stow 2 away in the tavern, so you'd have 9 in total, and continue on your next quest. That would be a-okay. But that's why you're going to constantly be coming back each quest and exchanging in items that you no longer need or you have better versions of to get more loot tokens to do more during that town phase. And that will continue to barrel roll as you go through the rest of the campaign. So you'll always be min-maxing your gear, making decisions on what you should give away and what you should keep every single time you finish a quest. So that, my friends, is going to wrap up the Massive Darkness 2 Heavenfall campaign content, which is part of my larger showcase for Massive Darkness 2, which exponentially got larger as we went along, but it was a lot of fun. It started with just a tutorial to get you guys going with the game, the core experience. Then we dived into a larger one-shot scenario so you could see the game kind of more fuller and in action and over a longer time frame, so it really built up. And now you got to see it through some campaign play as well in all the different phases. So hopefully this entirety or all of this showcase is going to help you make an informed decision on whether or not you want to pick up either the core box for Massive Darkness 2, the Heavenfall campaign expansion, or anything else out there in the wild. As we know from the original crowdfunding campaign, which I do have all of it, there is a ton of content. But here's the thing. With what you saw here in this Heavenfall campaign, in order to enjoy this campaign, you simply just need the core box experience and the Heavenfall expansion. Both are available retail. There is nothing else Kickstarter inside of this. The only thing I used that was Kickstarter exclusive was just the marbleized dice, but that's just how they look and has no impact whatsoever on gameplay. So anybody is able to jump in on this train late and enjoy the gameplay, which is what matters. Now, what did I like about the campaign versus the one-shot scenarios? 2 things. Pretty obvious, I think. One of them is level progression slows way down, and it's a brand new card that comes into your character's dashboard, and I really like it because it goes from 1 to 5 and then flips over and goes from 6 to 10. The progression and the amount of XP that you need to get through all those different levels is a lot wider of a margin, so it's going to take you a while to get up there versus the ones that come from the core box and the one-shot scenarios. Those have you moving at a quicker pace, and that leads me into my second reason why I like this campaign even more so than the one-shots, is that the loot coming out of these quests is not like a slot machine. And that's kind of what it feels like with either, especially Massive Darkness 1 back in the day, where it felt like you were just getting loot like every 5 seconds and then transmuting them in basically taking sets of 3 and firing them out the door to go up to the next tier. Like, that mindset basically made the idea of getting treasure, it just diluted the joy of getting that next cool item. Every time you got something cool, you're like, well, I just got something cool 2 seconds ago, so this next cool thing is now not as cool because, well, I just was excited. Like, it just kills the whole idea of like, ooh, that's the next thing, I really earned that. It just becomes, oh, here it comes again, another really awesome thing. But inside this campaign, and also especially in the Massive Darkness 2 core box, they changed the way that loot works in a way that slows it down. In the one-shot scenario that I did, the progression of loot is still pretty aggressive because the tiering of the levels goes up pretty aggressive. Everything gets tougher. It's kind of got that Zombicide-esque mentality where the game is basically leveling up at a faster pace to kind of take you down, and you have to stay ahead of it, so you have to get a bunch of treasure. So that's different. That's what the one-shot scenarios in the core box give you. But the campaign, what it does, it slows all that down so that when you actually gain treasure, you are like, oh, cool. This is actually going to replace something that I've had for quite some time that I kind of want to upgrade. And then you get to keep that for a while because you might not get a better replacement for some time, which means when you do get the replacement and you earn it, you're that much more happy about it. And I think that's how a dungeon crawler really gets into you and kind of gets its claws into you. Games like Shadows of Brimstone are like that too, where, you know, if you gain a number of treasures all in a heap, it's not going to have that same kind of excitement level as if you actually earned it and finally got that upgrade to the weapon that you love down the line. When you finally get it, it just feels like that much more of a reward for your effort that you put in. And that's kind of what's happening here in this campaign is, you know, even when I went ahead and just now in the gambling alley ended up pulling out the monk's robe for the Berserker, that was really cool because I was running with a really basic starting battered leather armor card for the entirety of quest number 1, which wasn't that exciting. And all this thing does is start generating me some extra mana. It's not even like a massive adjustment, but that is huge based on the fact I had to suffer through the entire quest, the first quest, with just a die roll. Now I'm getting a die roll and some mana. Doesn't sound like much, but it certainly does when you get to that town phase and you finally get this robe and you go, yes, that is a good thing. I will take additional mana because I know that during the playthrough I was struggling to hold on to mana and to be able to generate it. So that's actually going to come in handy and have big time impacts on how my character works. So those are the kind of things that make the whole campaign more interesting, is you can start to really focus on what your character does well, rather than knee-jerk reacting to every bloody item that comes flying at you in a one-shot scenario, which is kind of how that works. So, long story short, do I like the campaign? Yes. I think this campaign is literally doing what a lot of people wanted Massive Darkness 1 to be out of the gates. So what they did with Massive Darkness 2 is they still left the ability to do one-shot scenarios, because that's what's going to appease the norm of people that will play this game and have time for. But those individuals that really, really wanted a campaign, this is going to be huge. It's a must-buy in my opinion. If you have the core box experience for Massive Darkness 2, you need to pick up Heavenfall, the campaign. You just have to, because it's essentially adding in another completely different way to play the game, and in my opinion, a better way to play the game. And that, my friends, is going to wrap up another showcase here on Rolling Solo. Really hope you enjoyed this one. I had a lot of fun with it. Maybe we'll come back and revisit this down the line once more people have played through more of the Heavenfall campaign experience, so there's not as many spoilers going out there into the wild. Could be fun to revisit this and play another quest into the campaign. Let me know in the comments below if you're interested in that. Also, let me know, what do you think of the campaign if you're already playing it? And of course, if you don't have anything Massive Darkness, or maybe you just have the core box and you're kind of wondering, is this campaign for me? Let me know. Did these videos help you out, or have you decided for or against? Why not? I would love to hear all of that in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo.